The most emotionally impactful archetype beneath this title is the child who survived emotional absence by becoming internally self-sufficient. The hidden pain is not loneliness alone, but the quiet sacrifice of being unseen while learning to meet one's own needs too early. The irony is that the rich inner world that once protected the child from neglect later isolates the adult from intimacy, presence, and rest. You don't remember the exact moment it happened. There was no ceremony, no announcement, just a slow, almost polite disappearance. You were still in the room, still breathing, still doing what children do, but something essential learned to go quiet. You learned not to interrupt, not to ask twice, not to expect your name to be called with warmth. And in that silence, something remarkable and dangerous began to grow. You built a world, not the imaginary kind people romanticize, not whimsy or play. This was an inner architecture, rooms within rooms, long corridors of thought, a private place where you could finally be noticed by yourself, where your feelings had gravity, where your thoughts didn't need permission to exist. That inner world saved you. It kept you company when no one else did. It gave you a sense of coherence when the external world felt indifferent or unpredictable. Here's the irony that stings when you're old enough to name it. The very thing that protected you then is what now keeps you distant. The refuge became a fortress. The imagination became a filter between you and real intimacy. You learned to live inside yourself so well that being fully present with others now feels invasive, exhausting, even unsafe. Psychology has names for this, but the experience comes first. Children who feel invisible don't simply feel lonely. Loneliness still assumes you expect someone to come. Invisibility teaches you not to expect. Over time, your nervous system adapts. It learns to lower the volume on outward need and raise the signal inward. This is where hypervigilance quietly pairs with dissociation. One part of you is always scanning, reading the room, anticipating moods, staying small. Another part retreats inward, where control finally exists. Attachment theory would call this avoidant adaptation. Not because you don't want closeness, but because closeness once arrived inconsistently or with a cost. Your system learned that needing too much risks disappointment, or worse, rejection. So you internalized the caregiver. You became the witness, the comforter, the mirror. Neurologically, the default mode network, the brain system active during introspection, became overtrained. Thinking replaced feeling. Imagining replaced receiving. From the outside, this looks like depth. People say you're insightful, creative, old-souled. You can spend hours in thought, constructing meaning, replaying conversations, refining identity. But internally, there's a chronic tension, a sense that life is happening near you, not through you. Your inner world is vivid, but the outer one feels distant, slightly unreal. Presence feels like exposure. This is the cost no one talks about. When your inner world becomes your primary home, real relationships feel inefficient, messy, slow. They don't move at the speed of your thoughts. They require negotiation, vulnerability, timing. So you stay partly elsewhere. Even with people you love, you hold something back, not out of cruelty, but habit. You learned early that your inner life was safer than the unpredictable terrain of other people's attention. Carl Jung once wrote about the danger of living too exclusively in the inner world, where symbols replace contact and meaning substitutes for experience. Not because the inner world is wrong, but because it's incomplete. A psyche that never learned it could be held externally learns to hold itself too tightly. The imagination becomes both sanctuary and prison. The grief here is subtle. It doesn't announce itself as trauma. It shows up as a quiet fatigue with being the deep one, as frustration when people don't understand you, but also discomfort when they get too close. as longing paired with withdrawal. You crave resonance, but when it appears, your body braces. This is the residue of being unseen too long. Your system learned that visibility equals risk. And yet, there is something profoundly human in this adaptation. You did not choose it. You learned it. You learned to disappear without leaving, to be present without being felt, to think instead of ask, to imagine instead of receive. That intelligence deserves respect, but it also deserves updating. Because here's the truth, your inner world can't teach you on its own. Connection is not a threat. Presence is not exposure. And you no longer need to earn attention by being exceptional internally. The work now is not to abandon your inner world, but to open the windows, to let it breathe with others, to allow your thoughts to land in real time, in real relationships, where they can be met, not just admired from afar. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, stay with that discomfort. Curiosity is the first sign that your system is ready to renegotiate its old contracts. And if you're finding language here for something you've lived without words, take that as a quiet invitation to keep exploring, to leave a trace of your own experience in the comments, and to stay connected as we keep unpacking the invisible architectures that shape us. When you choose to return, you're not subscribing to content. You're choosing to be seen.